Welcome to Prepare Like a Pro live chats. My name's Jack McLean. I created Prepare Like a Pro early in the year. We are a strength and conditioning business that specialises in athletic development for footballers. If you're interested in checking out our coach's bio as well as training packages, feel free to head over to our website, preparelikeapro.com, where you can see our training packages both online and face-to-face, as well as online training programs that you can follow, including free downloadable programs to get an intro experience to the way that we work. Really excited today to catch up with Dr. Fergus Connolly. For those that don't know Fergus, he is one of the world's foremost human potential thought leaders and influencers in the world. Author of the best-selling book, Game Changer, The Art of Sports Science. Fergus has applied performance science with leading teams, military and business teams. He is one of the only coaches to have full-time roles in every major sport, including soccer, both Liverpool and Bolton Wanderers, professional and college football, San Francisco 49ers and the University of Michigan, and rugby with the Welsh national team and elite military units as well. You can check out his TED Talk on leadership, authenticity and sheepdogs. Fergus Connolly shares his personal story of success, authenticity and the power of empathy among leaders. I see Fergus has jumped on, so I'm going to invite him on to join me. Give us a few seconds to get the connection. This is the first international Prepare Like a Pro live chat as well, so super excited. G'day, Fergus.
How you doing, mate?
Going well, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good. What's the weather like?
It's beautiful. I'm actually doing this one from my car, so you can get a bit of an idea.
Oh, nice.
A bit of sunshine. So
I miss Oz.
Yeah. What's the weather like where you are?
It's good. It's probably not as warm. It's probably not as warm as where you are, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good at the minute.
I can imagine that's not hard when it comes to weather.
Absolutely.
Thanks for jumping on, mate. I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Happy to. More than happy. Thanks for asking me.
I'm a big fan, so I love your quotes on the Instagram. For those that are not following your page, definitely check it out. Are they a lot of them you come up yourself, or are they some that you get inspirations from other people? How do you come up with all the quotes?
Some of them are just stuff you learn as a child. Actually, a lot of them. Like there was one about a three-legged stool that I'd heard from my parents about, because I often wondered why farmers milking had a three-legged stool. But believe it or not, a three-legged stool is always finds steady ground.
More stable.
More stable, yeah, there you go. Useless piece of information, but hey, if anybody if strength and conditioning fails and they end up working on a farm, now they know. Yeah,
actually, that makes sense to me. I remember someone telling me that the triangle was one of the strongest shapes.
Yeah.
I guess it sort of creates a bit of a triangle.
Yeah. I think there's a good lesson in that. I think sometimes we're always searching for a magic bullet, but a lot of the old principles still apply. Common sense is still undefeated.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where tradition can help us in the current world, can't it?
Yeah.
Let's crack straight into it, mate. Take us back to the beginning. Where did the passion... Was there a day that you recall or an age that you're at where you recognised, I'm going to work in high performance with, whether it be with SAS guys, military, or with your Liverpool teams and elite teams?
No, it was just a kid playing Gaelic football. I know AFL is the second greatest field sport in the world, but I think it was just playing footy at home, and I just wanted to I started a little bit later than most, and just wanted to get better and tried to learn everything I could. And that was a tough lesson for me, because when I started playing football, I was trying to catch up with everybody else. And so I thought at the time it was, I'll just get fitter. I'm not fit enough. I'm not whatever. But then eventually you realize a lot of it's down to skill. And by the time I realized how important skill was, it was too late. And so that was a tough lesson to learn. And then my plan, to be honest, was just to go and be a school teacher so that I could coach kids in the evening. That was really all I wanted to do at 18, 19, going to university. I was going to become a woodwork and construction teacher. That was my plan, stayed at university. And what I did then was, and this is a good lesson for anybody at uni, is that's the best time you're going to have if you wanted to learn something. So I would just save my money and I would travel around the world to learn. And probably actually one of the first coaches that really helped me was an Australian, Ashley Jones. He was strength coach with the All Blacks at the time. And I remember I just started teaching, went down to visit him down in New Zealand, got sunburned within 30 minutes. No ozone layer down there, and he was brilliant. And To be honest, that was it. I just followed a passion and interest for trying to I just wanted to learn about how humans could be better, and particularly in sports starting out. That was it. To be honest, even today, that's just what I'm interested in. How do you make people better?
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. It's a great life pursuit. And you mentioned empathy in your TED talk. And so with Ashley Jones, did you email, phone call? How did you make that contact? Because it does to reach out.
That's about, I'm 43 now, so it's about almost 20 years ago. And I think it must have been an email. And Ash was brilliant. And that's the thing, I think, in this industry, like that's one of the things, like you or somebody else might ask me to do something. And I always remember people like Ashley or that would all know. There's only one person's ever said no to me. And I think back then anyway, people were just all too willing to share. I don't know if it's quite the same now, but I was very fortunate. A lot of people helped me. And if I can help anyone, I will. But yeah, I think it was an email. And Ash said, if you can get down here, because I offered to pay. I said, listen, can I pay you for I didn't know whether I could afford it. I probably couldn't have if he had put a price on it. He said, if you can get down here, this is the address. So I went booked a flight. And I remember, I have so many memories actually of, I remember going to San Diego to visit Dan Path. And you don't know if you've got enough money to get a cab back to the hotel. Like you're scrimping and scraping. And it's just the journey you go on. But just you manage to save enough money. You take a risk, you go and you learn, and you build great relationships. But you learn, I think that's one of the things that, and obviously with COVID it's difficult, but I would encourage coaches to go and visit people, because you pick up a lot more than you just learn on courses or you learn remotely. Like the big thing I got from, for example, Ashley, was his style and his manner. I picked up so many things watching him. I had Richie McCaw and Dan Carter walking around the weight room and keeping them in their place. These are gods of the game, but it was his personality. Yeah. Well, another thing actually I learned when I was down there was he gave me the program that they were using, and I was going, oh man, I'll give you this back, thank you, because to me this was gold. Like this was a training program. He said, no, keep it. He said, don't worry. He said, I've given it to all the other strength coaches. So he was at Canterbury at the time, but he had given it to the Blues and he had shared it with everybody. And I said, wow, because I thought this was gold dust. And he said, no. He said, first of all, the training program is only one part. Next, you have to have the athletes and the players that I have, that I'm fortunate to have. And then you got to implement it. And that was a big eye opener for me. Like, it's not about sets and reps. Got to have good athletes, and you got to be able to implement it.
And there are some young coaches that may be watching, and I think there's a great lesson in that. Like, you do need to see excellence, don't you, to understand it. That you can't really read about how a coach carries himself in a weight room or on the field, or those interactions with people and the people skills. The art of coaching, I guess it's called.
Yeah, he pulled me one. He said to me, I remember him pointing out one time, he said, did you see what I said to those three guys? And I'd missed it. And what he had said to them was, he was walking past, they weren't working. And he said, I'll have a cappuccino with 2 shots. And it was his way of having a dig at them that this isn't a coffee house. And it was like, there's something like that. You're not going to see that in a course, or you're not going to pick that up. But it was, and again, these are, like I said, legends of rugby. And Richard McCaw is named the greatest player ever. But so to see those things, you've got to talk to people. You're not going to read that in a book.
Yeah. And how would you journal it? When you drive away from a session like that, would you just mentally digest it in the car? Like, what was your process of?
I wasn't great at writing a journal. I would scribble notes and stuff maybe in the evening, but I tried to remember a lot. I reflected, thought a lot. That's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
I sketch a lot. I have large notebooks that I'll draw diagrams and I'll try and visualize it. But I think that's just because I'm more visual in terms of learning. So I've got lots of notebooks, like even just lying here, I've got all of these like black notebooks with stuff scribbled in them and arcs. And I can just trying to improve how I can visualize things and how they interact.
Yeah, fantastic. And so you mentioned teaching early on was something that you recognized within yourself that you love to share and make people better. What was your first teaching role? Was it at a high school? Was it working in a sporting team?
Yeah. So I taught for 3 years as a construction and woodwork teacher, and some of them are worse than that. That's the other thing. I think people sometimes don't see the value in learning from other industries, and there's so much to learn from other areas. I learned a lot about teaching. I learned a lot about communicating. We would do things that the kids had no interest in. And so I had to come up with projects for them, like where I had to make it interesting to get them involved.
Yep.
And like 15 years later, I'm standing in front of like an NFL team and I'm trying to teach them about nutrition. Well, I got to make it interesting for these, because athletes
got to engage your audience, don't you?
Exactly, yeah. You got to make it, and the other thing too is you got to make it of value to them. I thought at first you had to make it just interesting, but you got to provide value, so they have to see why they would want to do it. But why you want it and why they want it are two completely different things. Like some guys want it for status, some guys want it for whatever. So that was really, really helpful. Understanding as well the way different people. So you asked me how, so knowing that I sketch, but some other athletes might like to see it written. Some others like things that rhyme. So when I present now, I try and include a combination of all those things so that I hope to reach everybody in the audience. My presentations, I put a lot of work into how they're presented, not just the content. A lot of time on the presentation of it. Yeah,
someone's perception and lens, it varies, doesn't it, amongst the group?
Exactly, yeah, and you have to be aware of that. And also, different people have different backgrounds.
Yep.
So you could be talking to somebody who might have done an engineering degree or somebody who's studying that, or you could be talking to somebody who's really interested in music. They're going to learn, or they're going to see the same presentation, but they're going to interpret it in different ways. So you have to cater for all of those audiences.
And is it a matter of knowing, like if it's a sporting team and they're athletes, is there a trend there with athletes compared to military, compared to corporate, or is it a matter of, do you do a survey before a presentation to find out individual, or is it just? No,
most athletes, like we did studies, most athletes, this is no surprise, but 70% of them are kinesthetic learners.
Yep.
What's interesting though is that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how they were born. By the time you see them, they have learned how to learn by doing.
So the environment.
And so they're largely visual and kinesthetic, so you focus on being a little bit more visual, but at the same time, you also have to provide like a reason for them to do it. So for a veteran athlete, for example, you want to stress with them, this is going to give them longer in their career. Yep. With a younger athlete, it might be more about, this is going to help you perform better so that you can at least make the team in the next year or two. And so having that, knowing not just the actual medium of presenting, but also knowing what trigger and button you want to press in the different people. These are just considerations. It's not a science. You can't say, 20% of my time has to be about this. You got to be just aware of your audience.
Yeah, it's something that I'm in the process now where I'm part of a team that are opening up a gym, and we're going through the program, and it resonates with me because we're trying to think of what our members will be, but we don't know yet. Yeah,
and you have to view it as well as an iterative cycle. So when you give a presentation or you present something, you have to be very aware of what you hear back. Yeah, I gave a talk one time to 49ers and I said it. I said, just, you got to take the shake. Anyway, that wasn't a key phrase for me. I had other key phrase I was really trying to get across. But throughout the rest of the day, all I could hear was the guys joking, take the shake, make sure you take the shake. So then that was not intended, but then I used that as a banner or as I call them campaigns. So I took that phrase and that became a campaign phrase, because when you're trying to drive home behavioral change, you should almost consider it as an advertising campaign. So I'm trying to advertise your post-workout shake. Well, if that's so they latched onto it. So I treat it as an advertising campaign, because you're competing against Nike, Adidas, and everything else for these guys' attention.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ingrained, and particularly more so in today's world with social media. Yeah, getting attention is it's competitive.
It is, yeah. And one other thing one of the mistake I think that I made this early on, I think I see some people doing it, is they think that what they deem important is what the client or the athlete is going to think is important.
Yeah.
They're completely different. Like some people just want to turn up and know what to do. They don't care about mitochondria and central nervous system or whatever. They want to know what benefit they're going to get from it. Yeah. So you have to visually put yourself in the seat or in their position and consider, what are they seeing or hearing from me?
And that's where the empathy side of things is a strong suit to have for a coach, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a careful balance as well between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is where you understand someone's feelings. Sympathy is where you start to share someone's feelings, and that can be dangerous. So it can be beneficial, but it's a careful balance. If somebody comes in and they're really struggling, you and you're trying to help them, getting into the hole with them may not necessarily be the best thing for them.
Yeah.
But understanding that they're in that struggle, in truly understanding how they feel, and then truly understanding how to help them get out, I think that's what a lot of high performers desire. But getting in there with them sometimes can be dangerous. Like, sometimes sympathy it can be risky. Activity.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does make sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I think I don't know, maybe there's a potential feel that you do need to connect with them, and by doing that, you're on their level all the time. Where sometimes it's just like you're saying, like you haven't gone through what they've gone through, you don't understand it, but you're there for support and just reaching out and listening. Yeah,
using the word "I understand" sometimes can, like, straight off the bat, that can be like, if somebody's struggling and you say, "I understand." First of all, you have to listen, and to show that you're listening, you have to be quiet and just shut up for a minute. Let them say what they want to say, and then ask questions about it, so they know that you're listening, and not just listening, but you hear them. Yeah. And then possibly you can say, "I understand," or then you can start to empathize. But if somebody starts to say, "I'm really sore," and say, "Yeah, I understand," you haven't actually listened to me. You know what I mean? And there could be underlying things that they're waiting to tell you as well.
Yeah.
So empathy is important. If you don't have empathy, you're not going to understand people. You see it with sociopaths, but sympathy then is a tricky line as well, because it's like, I use the analogy of if you're walking past a river or lake and you see somebody in the water and they're struggling. Empathy is where you help them get out and you support them to get out. Sympathy sometimes is just diving straight in. Now there's two of you in the water, and it's a lot more risky. You think you're doing the right thing, but it could mean both of you are going down. So it's having that balance, that on a personal level, helping people.
Yeah. And I guess that's where experience comes into it.
Yeah. You only have to drown once before you realize it's a careful balance. Yeah.
And on that note, like, you've witnessed and worked with a lot of successful teams and units across a whole lot of sports and businesses. Are there common traits that you've learned along the way that if you're working with a developing team or a developing unit, that you try and work with straight off the bat? Like, I guess important pillars.
Yeah, I think the first one for me is always honesty, and I mean that in that you're, like, brutally honest with each other. First of all, with yourself. That means if, for example, you're not getting in shape, well, you need to be honest you need to take a good hard look in the mirror and be really honest with yourself. But you also need to be honest